Okay. The title of today's episode is "Static is exas is static existence containing dynamic experience." And I wanted to read for you a poem that is by Robert Frost. I'll show you a picture of Robert Frost. He's an American poet who wrote a poem that was super simple, but people took it in such a deep way that I became part of like the cultural stratosphere, if I can say. So here's the picture of Robert Frost. That's Robert Frost. And the road not taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveller long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having it perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had won them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Pretty much, this was a man who saw himself at a crossroad and realized that he may never come to that crossroad again, and so he took the path less traveled by. And it has made all the difference. You know why? Because he saw what it could have been. That means if you are someone who, I don't know, let's say you don't know if you're a great violinist or not, it's like taking the path less traveled by is trying, actually trying things. Failure is something that when I saw, like, back in the day, their parenting skills, for example, the Spartans, their parenting skills were very intense, that it was as if, like, you had to take the path less traveled by. Sometimes for men, especially, honor is that, you know. It is the demonstration of the uncommon to some degree. We are a skill-based civilization. I mean, since my childhood, every person I've seen, they've been engaged in some sort of activity, some sort of skill. And now the question is, how next level can we go from that? So, when we look at the title, I mean, this title, you don't know how many ways I have written it. I have looked at this concept so many times, that could it be that rather than everything is containing nothing, could it be nothing containing everything, or could there even be the simultaneity of the two? And the question is static existence containing dynamic experience. What that means is you are a movement. And so how is this movement being made aware of? How is it being witnessed? Before I physically move or even say these words, I can notice the silence. I can notice the stillness. I can notice how before there is effort of expressive intelligence, there is just watching. You know, a lot of life, you're just watching it. You know, certain phases of life, you get certain conscious control, and you can, in some sense, do things. And that's the thing, we don't treat what we do as what we are being, you know? We are trying to do things to become things, not realizing the moment our attention goes on doing something, we have become it. You know, human beings are living their lives. Everybody's living their life. You know, bit by bit, either they're running or they're jogging, walking, and some people, they're not even running, you know. There's been phases of life where I know that personally I've woken up that day and had no motivation for anything. It was literally like staring at the color of three-dimensional space, pretty much, like the day. But then there are days where some questions approach you and you wonder why they have approached you. A mentality I've had since my youth is that when things have happened, they have been more than the implication of what is seen. So that means the shaman actually identifies a depth in the eyes of the being, you know? That means shamans were people who actually know this place was multidimensional. So they were not limited by the dimensions of one context. You know, you can say, let's say a person has 10 friends, okay? And you go to each of these 10 friends and you're like, who am I? You know? And, you know, one of the friends, you know, let's say one of your friends says, nah, you're not a good person, you're a terrible person, you know? And then let's say 9 of your friends say you're a terrible person, one of your friends says you're a good person. You know, which one, who would you listen to? At that moment, you'll be like, I only have one friend, you know? Little does the person know those 10 friends were being honest. The one who said the nice thing could have potentially been dishonest, you know? This is why honesty is way valuable, you know? That the most important thing about friendship, I think, is being a human being first. Being a human being. That means you know, it's hard to watch. In my youth, I was like this, and it had such a karmic backlash. Oh, it had such a karmic backlash where I had the impatience of accepting the outer realms regardless of the framework of my inner realms. You would see, you know, I mean, I'll share something very personal. When I was very young, I have a brother, and long story short, when we were young, very young, like 8 years old or 9 years old, something like, no, not 8 or 9, a bit older, sorry. Was it 9? I don't know. I don't know, guys. It was a memory from my youth. I don't remember exactly my age. I can tell you most of my youth, I didn't even consider numeracy as a part of my definition. That means numbers. It took me a while to realize their value. The value of the glory of mathematics. But pretty much, we would, when I was young, my parents, they would drive from this place, which was a couple hours of driving from Shomal of Iran. And me and my brother were in the back seat, kind of falling asleep. We would, every time we'd be in a car that would be moving, it's like we'd fall asleep. And so what happened is, I won't forget, there were many times where we would come back, right? And it would be like late at night, maybe like, I don't know, for that age, I was like 11 p.m. was very late, you know? And now, of course, time is an illusion, but back then, you know. And I remember we would, the car would pull into the garage, you know, of our apartment in Iran. And I would remember my brother was asleep. I would remember I had semi-woken up. And I would remember that when my parents would wake us up, say we're home, we're home, and we would have to, like, after this maybe 4 or 5 hour ride in the car, you know, it was we would get out of the car. I mean, I would get out of the car. I would remember that my brother, when they would wake him up, he would kind of like get irritated and cry a little, you know? And it was this unique thing because I remember I would be in those moments and I would not cry. There was no reason to cry. But then I realized the crying was emotional. So that means when you actually have rationalized the situation, emotions can't so openly arise. But actually, if you haven't looked at what's going on in a situation, any sort of overwhelmment can be a shock, you know? And of course, guys, I'm saying this that in that memory, my brother cried, but my brother is a very, very strong person. Stronger than me, I would say, even, in his will. But anyways, it was a unique moment. It was a moment where I could see where the edge of it's not that I could see it then, but now I could totally see the edge of the inner realms. I could see it. I could notice it in my memories. Sometimes I fly over my memories as if they're a forest I have walked through, and now I'm flying over. When you remember memories, it's very instant because it was very experientially real. So the mind is like a reality collector. It collects moments of realness. You know? Moments where things are real. It's like, yo, I'm recording this for future reference, you know? But really, the nature of the mind, I mean, depends who you are. For me, my inner realms, there was a time I used to give them meaning, but then I realized that's the novice. That's a very noob to run into the unknown with meaning. The whole point of the unknown is that the unknown moves the knowledge. People go to the unknown to get meaning, not to give meaning to the unknown. Specifically, we give meaning to the unknown in spheres of civilization's knowledge. Right now, I am inside the city, but if I was like back in the day with like Lao Tzu would go on these silent walks in the forest, if I was there with Confucius and Lao Tzu and we were just walking slowly, you know, silently in the forest, there I would not have any reason to touch the unknown. I am touching the unknown currently simply because civilization has an advancement, and poetically, the world soul, the Gaian mind, has authorized it. That means some people, they have a sort of revelatory relationship with the antenna, with the inner antenna. But for some people, it's not a revelatory relationship, it's a dialogue. It's a conversation. Just like how I'm speaking right now, you know, there is something to respond to. When you actually are real to yourself in unknown states, you can actually have real communication. But if you are unreal to yourself in unknown states, that means you have still allowed a story to contain your experience. So if you experience something beyond the story of your existence, you'll freak out, you know? So the idea is not to keep too fixed a story on existence, but identify with it and eventually realize that as Buckminster Fuller said in one of his lectures, we're going towards becoming the universe, man. And he didn't say it like the universe, man. He said it the universe, man. The universal man, the universal human being. When will it come? Shall we keep watching animals bite each other? Or shall advanced civilizations finally rise into the sky? There are some who even I could tell you something that I heard. I got shocked. I'll be honest. It was incredible. It was such an incredible moment. You see, in my works, I have pretty much concluded my existential value, pretty much who I am as a human being. For me, I played the games of the individual life. What does that mean? That means you can live a completely, purely individualistic life, forgetting the collective, be supremely hedonistic, become completely ruthless, careless, and brutal. You can. That's an option here. Do you know? That's the individual realms. That's when your island is more important than the island all islands are on. You know? So that's the thing. And after you play the games of the individual, you get acquainted to your individual karma, which is pretty much how you have accumulated realism so far. You know, and it has to do with your teachings of not real, being not real. Because I think about it, it's strange. I'm born and I'm getting experiences of real life. Yeah, every day I wake up, you know, one experience, you know, we went to the next page of this book of life. All right, next experience, next experience, next experience. But I feel death is an experience where the person is learning from how unreal they are, not how real they are. Do you know? That means it's a sort of breaking of reality. So all these realities, all the stories of our lives that we put like trophies on the shelf of our minds and we polish them and shine them, little do we know that we have to leave this house. And if you're conscious, you live as a mind before doing that. If you're unconscious, then atoms are atoms. What can we say? You were brainless before you had a brain. You were not brainless. You were mindless before you had a brain. You know, if I grant an atomic reality full access to the intelligence of this realm, it will null it down. It will deny it. You know what that means? That means, imagine there's someone building a science. Okay, let me say it like this: someone building an let's say an IKEA furniture. Okay, now there is someone who has already built this IKEA furniture. And the person is stuck. They don't know what to do with the IKEA furniture. There's something that's not making sense about it to them. And then somebody who has built the IKEA furniture is standing right there and says, "Hey, do you want me to help you?" Do you know? And the issue is with the type of egotism we have on the planet, the species is like, no, it's only what I see. Do you know? And that's the thing, that strangely we're moving to a time where if we don't have charity and compassion for who we will be in the future, if we don't have compassion for who we will be, tolerance for who we will be, then we will kill who we are now. We will kill each other now. You know, it's very easy. You think, you know, let me tell you, war had begun way before people picked up weapons. War begins in the mind of people. Relationships break in the minds of people way before they are in the outer realms they break. You know, it's like one tiny thing the person does and this angst of distrust arises, for example. You know, so it becomes a situation of, if it becomes too dynamic beyond being contained in static ways, for the first time the human species has noticed that its intelligence surpasses the language that it is using to define it. What that means is the paintbrush can never draw a three-dimensional phenomenon. Maybe futures in cyberspace a paintbrush could do that, but like here it can't. You know, it's a two-dimensional technology. It's like a three-dimensional object which is used to generate a two-dimensional painting. And I feel like we are honestly like a fifth-dimensional technology object, being a two-dimension, not two, being a four-dimensional, let's say 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time kind of being. So what I feel is that this whole existence, which is what is trying to contain my experience, is the effect of the experience. And from a causal position, the experience here has no attributes. That means the light in the room is not the room. The light in the room is a different dimension than the room it's lighting up. The candle is not made of the same thing as the walls of the room. And so the mind is not made of the same thing as the atoms. The mind is made of what I have called eventum. They are event particles. They are literally, it was my effort in looking at the human psyche and wondering, all right, if we look at the human body, the smallest unit seems to be the atom. And then I wondered about the human psyche and the human mind, what is the smallest unit? And I realized it's an event. The earliest thing I can remember about myself is a memory. And that memory was an event of the participation of self and world. A bit of itself was moving, a bit of it was world moving. When the person moves, they retain consciousness. But if the person is moved, it's unconscious. Unless the only place in your inner realms you can be moved, then you can be conscious of it. So you know what it is? The inner realms, your mind is literally like, imagine your body is you drawing something, and your mind is an additional hand over your hand accompanying your rhythm. So I would say that moment where that rock star on stage is in the zone, or that musician with the drums has gone into trance, or some sort of dancer has gone into some ecstatic bliss, you know, or some sort of person through stillness that their mind is dancing, you know. I've had many moments where I've just sat still and my soul's been moving everywhere in the moment, you know, literally my attention. That means you see attention in the body is individual. Beyond the limits of the body, oh man, your attention is kind of like everywhere. It's every location, literally. We are creatures that are just hovering for now. We are existing. I don't consider anybody is really living, even though many people are doing many different things. But I'm saying we're not living, because the true life of the species has to come from an identification of its face. That means, how can you say you know someone who you have not met? Do you know? Or you have not seen? How do you know the face of someone you have not met yet? You know, it's like, we have to prepare ourselves as if we are to visit or we are to be visited by an advanced civilization. You know, human beings are natural beings, attain natural mastery. Upon attaining natural mastery, work with the unnatural. That means you'll see, back in the day, you know, people, the logos guided people into the forest. Now it is bringing them back into the city. Now from this, like, you got to think about Shri Prabhupada's life. You know, this man was in the in forests in India meditating, this 70-year-old dude. In the 80s or something, during the whole hippie movement, he decides to come to America in a cargo train. This 70-year-old man, where in his journals he writes he was literally like a single match in a matchbox. Literally, he was on a cargo train, one of those container ships, and so he was just literally being slammed as the ship went through, as the ship would rock, being slammed to the walls of each place, you know, walls of the container. So he goes through this journey. This dude brings a briefcase of his books, you know, on yoga. And he comes to the West and he sets up this small Hare Krishna shop during the whole LSD, you know, hippie movement thing in the 80s or 70s, 80s, you know. And it's strange what happens. That certain percentage of the population are drawn to this, as if like during a point where you can say the species was under, I don't want to say chemical invasion, but some sort of invasion of a chemical experience. Not that invasion has to have a concept of bad always. You know, invasion just means you've stepped in the room. Do you know something has stepped in your room? You know, or you have stepped in the room of someone. Do you know that means technically an invasion doesn't mean it's an evil invasion if aliens like come down to, for example, Earth, but they don't do anything. Imagine aliens just come down and they're chilling in parks, like, you know, smoking Cuban cigarettes, you know. The Cuban cigars, you know, alien Cuban cigars, you know, that are like candles or something, you know. Can you imagine that? Like the aliens are they just entered the space. And there is authorization. I honestly think if extraterrestrials land on this planet, they're not going to come and talk to us first. There's other tenants in the room. Because there is something scary coming. People don't realize it. And what that scary thing is the speed and direction of life's expectation no longer being as you have a habit of expecting it. That means that's why I'm telling people, get comfortable with the unknown. Notice it, observe it. You know, we have been so obsessed by knowledge because we have wanted to keep this physical apparatus in check. But now we have kept it in check where we're like, what else? What else? Like after we stepped out of the regular jungle and we came to the concrete jungle, what is the next game? Is it just to literally devour space through meaningless activity? I honestly feel it broke my heart one night. You know, my mind has broken my heart, I can tell you, ad infinitum so far. Pretty much with every new experience, some part of my psychology is like, oh shit, you know, you know? When I say life is being wasted, is because people, they are looking to work for something. They don't realize that they have to work for their own livelihood. But this work has to surpass an ideological analysis of the self that is just limited to a linguistic simulation that regardless of what you believe, you think your beliefs will be with you? Let me tell you, there will come a moment where it will be like a wind, where everything the person has held on to will leave, only the rawness of experience remains. You know what's a phenomenal idea? That we are human today, but it doesn't mean humanity will just be human tomorrow. For me, I realized that, let's just say, that means the mind, so many people, they're fascinated by the visualization of, let's go see the aliens, you know. But I will tell you, for me, it's not the aliens that are fascinating. So what? Let's say an alien came. Two options. Either it's decent or it's indecent. If it's indecent, we're fighting it. If it's decent, we're integrating with it, you know. And if we're integrating with a decent alien, then it's like, that's not interesting for me. It's not just only that moment where the leader of humanity is shaking hands with the leader of the non-human, you know? Like, it becomes a situation where afterwards you're like, okay, let's say they shake hands. Let's say alien immigration occurred. Let's say we had a bunch of aliens in the street who had immigrated to planet Earth, like mind controlling a human being. Like, how would you feel as a human being where if you saw a member of your species being mind controlled by a bunch of human beings, do you know? Sorry, by a bunch of aliens, you know? So you would suddenly see that it brings another set of problems. That means there has never been an answer and a problem alone. They have just been taking turns playing tag with our attention. That means, I am telling you, whoever understands this, you become an incredible designer on this planet. Fearlessness to see as far as you can and if you attempt your furthest vision, your most advanced vision, I will tell you, strange things will happen. If you attempt what is against the odds, I am telling you, there's something about the lords of karma where it seems like the eyes of this universal sector beyond embodiment is watching all bodies. I am telling you, we are the entertainment of the universal sector. I wouldn't be surprised if there's endless dimensions like a coliseum, like elevations and levels of a coliseum witnessing the human game. For we are alone until we could notice that we are not. You know, we're suffering until we're not. That's it. You know, what else can you do when you're suffering? You know, it's just suffering. And so, humanity must attain a level of civility where in my science fiction novel where I'm like, the United Nations has a galactic sector. that aliens may also complain from human beings. That means in the future an alien can be a member of human civilization. You know, in my science fiction novel, I have this situation where there's an airport, and in the airport you see aliens, to invisible people with suitcases just invisibly moving, to even animals who have advanced robotic technology connected to them, and even compared to robots, they're all living the human game. You know, that means the human game, it started with us, but then it's going to have new players eventually. I can give that a certainty of 2,000 years if we don't press the wrong buttons and we still endure here. There is greatness ahead. There is a strange greatness, a strange multidimensional, I don't want to say storm, but it's like the opposite of a storm, you know? It's like the best type of clarity. A strange kind of clarity is approaching the human being, and the best thing we can do is advance the noticing part. That's why I'm saying there's some people like Elon Musk, they're contributing to the external technologies of the human species, you know. And then there's people like the yogis, the mystics, the philosophers, the scholars, where they're contributing to the mind of civilization and the inner technologies, the inner realm technologies. For me, I had to use the term inner realm to be able to speak about it, you know, because all these things are there. Your experience, this is the whole point of truth. Experience is instantaneous, but we define existence linguistically comparatively. That means you need two different moments of existing in different locations to, in some sense, have a sense of different or let me say it like this. Imagine like there's a phone booth. You go and use that phone booth one day, then tomorrow you go and use it. The only thing that is changing, keeping those two physical experiences in three-dimensional space separate, is time. Do you see? Time divides the rooms of the three-dimensional, you know? You know, this is why, guys, I stopped saying like everybody technically has the time to help. But many times when people ask for help, we're like, sorry, I don't have the time, you know? And that's the thing. It's like the moment you realize time is paint upon the three dimensions, you will become an artist of your own psyche. You will become the witness of your event of life. You know, guys, I think even that in the future, I could totally see passports having an extra line, maybe under nationality, being species. Can you imagine? We have like I remember like the still it's a work in progress, but I could tell you I wrote the skeletal structure. I wrote like an architect, like the blueprint of this novel, the sci-fi novel, where man, I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it. It's too soon to share. Right now, when I speak to you, I feel I am a living, moving being. But moments where there's a pause and I'm just looking at things, I am defining with static existence. So I could tell you the attention is dynamic experience if it implements energy. So think of every human being, regardless of their intelligence, regardless of their skill level, okay, regardless of who they are, you know, what they're thinking or whatever. Do you know, we all have a binary approach to life where exert effort or don't exert effort, you know, do nothing or do something, you know, and so that effort That binary effort is an energetic relationship prior to the value you linguistically give your moment. So what does that mean? That means the more we are energy, the more life existence is a static reality, you know? But when we are a linguistic entity that requires various variables to exist, we become a dynamic experiencer. Because what's the point of being a character in a story if the character is trying to be a statue? What's the point of branding yourself or putting stickers of beliefs on your face or disbelief on your face when you have to actually rip those stickers off your eyes and actually look at reality? You know, because it doesn't mean it has to make sense. This was the whole thing I noticed, that people, the unknown, you see, if you're not content with it, you try to contain it. Just like how something you don't understand, the person tries to speak to it in a familiar way. You know, I'll give you an example. Like, it's like hearing someone speaking the same language but with an accent that you are unfamiliar with. You know, and so that accent you're unfamiliar with is incomprehensible to you, but you feel at the same time you're understanding what they're saying. Do you know what I mean? So I will say that now we have to be aware of our outer realms as an object. So every person, just study your objective existence. This is pretty much 101 basic. You know, you got to find a way to physically endure. So physically endure, but don't be vicious and violent, because that defeats the whole purpose of spontaneous living. You know? That means if the person tries to be too much of a good person, too much of a bad person, it's like, hey, you know, it's like you've put a box on your head and you think you're walking towards the right place. Life is not language. Life is an experience. It's an event. It's an event where our participation with it changes it. And the participation of 8 billion beings with this event of life is the emergence of an advanced civilization. A civilization that cannot grant its inefficiency space in its mind before its efficiency. That means if you have dared see yourself as weak, if you have dared see yourself as inefficient, if you have made your weakness easier than your strength, then you have never seen your strength. And what that means is that your strength is your trust. I don't know how anybody can have strength without trust. Anything I've moved where I've required strength, my hands and positioning of my intelligence had to trust my own strength. You know? And if you don't trust your strength in this world, it doesn't matter if you're lifting a feather or as undeveloped civilization. It will be the same. That who is the storyteller of your mind? Who? It's an experience. It's a mind is not an object, and we've been fighting over it like fools that were broken before they could be fixed. You know, sometimes I am angry at myself, but not this self. You know, it's like that moment that person has had such a non-dual experience, they're like, what God you pray to? And he's like the one in the mirror. So guys, I'm gonna end the talk. Oh my God, it's only been 39 minutes? What the Oh man, 39 minutes. Why did it feel to me like an hour and like 10 minutes? You know, I remember writing this sentence, fear kills a man before he has lived. And it was a tribute to many moments in my life where because I was scared, I didn't trust the moment, and I didn't get to see the evolution of the karmic experiment of the moment, you know. One thing I am I am proud of, to be honest, there isn't. My individual life after some point became so infinitesimal compared to the infinite life that this species has in plans to live, that it really, I can tell you that, it gets boring seeing yourself after a while. And that is why we evolved. We got tired of smelling dirt, and we were like, all right, I've had it. Can you imagine? That's like evolutionary reason why the ape stood up. It was like, oh my god, it smells so bad when I'm on four limbs. I'm just gonna go on two. Evolution was not only a breath of fresh air. It was a breath of a fresh world. You know, a breath of a fresh experience. By the way, for those listening, I will be in the Discord of the Patreon community for those interested after the talk. Uh, for those interested, anyways, just making a note of this. By the way, guys, at the end of it, I'm gonna have like 10 minutes Q&A, audience engagement. So anybody who has a question or wants me to look at something in a certain way, you can share. I would like to read something for you guys. I want to read for you guys. I want to go into a quote tunnel of sorry, not quote tunnel, poetry tunnel of this poetry work I wrote in 2016 called Garden of Change. And I feel like reading the seventh poem for some reason. I'm going to read that. Before You Were Born. The poem's called Before You Were Born. The title is, the poem begins like this. Anger. Okay, so Before You Were Born, let me just choose a better song in the background. So guys, I'm gonna play my most favorite song in the world while I read this. Before you were born, anger should stop before ignorance hurts itself. We think we are divine, but the agenda of the mistaken is that they have mistakenly taken. Many days I have lost myself, possessed by an anger that chose to decide without reason. Tears are heavy some nights. I think, for the sky cannot lie when thought fades. These choices are profound only when the divine speaks through grace. Be selfless until the moment has shown that beyond ideology, the world turns. You, my beloved being, were free before you were born. And the poem ends, guys. You were free before you were born, you know? Who knew we had more freedom before we were... The next poem is number 8. I am not here to calculate. So the poem says, how does ideology fathom non-existence? Is this a dream or reality in a reality? Oh, sorry. Is this a dream of reality in a reality that is void? Oh, sorry. I'm reading that wrong. Is this a... So I'll read it from the beginning, guys. The poem, I'm not here to calculate. How does ideology fathom non-existence? Is this a dream or reality in a reality that is void? I am not here to calculate, for an abacus cannot fulfill the task of a large, powerful digital calculation. Our work is our own until we realize the now owns all beyond the space of time. A secret remedy and the quickest one to health is to realize you are the universe in the first place. Is mystical poetry enough to change trembling hands? If you think you are yourself, what about all that can be? Attachment is delusion when words replace worlds. What is within you is beyond what can be known. So, guys, there's 31 poems here. People can choose from 1 out of 31 except 7 and 8, which I just read. Anybody can choose. Anybody who's in the chat section can choose a number and we can... I'll read the second one. What is love? Reminds me of that song, you know? What is love? What is love when the ocean ignores the pain of the drop? How could fading clouds feel so confident about the truth of their shape? I once saw a face in the sky. Did I mention it was my own? All that we see is a blur in the clarity of an unspeakable cosmos. An unspeakable cosmos. Clarity of an unspeakable cosmos. There we go. That's probably going to be the next episode. Clarity of an unspeakable cosmos. Okay, we have numbers. 22. Let's see. 22. Let's see what plant from this garden of change is 22. Okay. Keep in mind, guys, I wrote these 4 years ago. A lot of my perspectives have changed a bit since then. Oh my God, 22 is called Before Destruction. Once I was in a fight with my reflection. At the end of such a personal war, it seemed that the mirror in between was left broken. Some buy new cars, others require to deal with their karma. What does it mean when life is mean? The warrior within has already held the sword, but who brought the weapon into the battlefield? They have said your worst enemy is yourself, but who can fight the clay of thought before it breaks? There are many wonders, there are many wonders. Technically, it should be spelled with an A, but I spelled it with an O, so I'm going to stay true to the typo, you know. There are many wonders in this world, but how does the world wonder about its own turn? Wow, there are many wonders in this world, but how does the world wonder about its own turn? Can the axis of destruction be the same axis of creation in the maintenance of Vishnu's house? Can a poet write a poem beyond belief? The only war that requires a general to command is the remembrance of the absolute within the heart of man. We are all warriors in disguise, ready to fight ourselves. A blade must fall and only be picked up by the ground. Stop the fight of eons and love the clarity that allows. Before warfare, wonder if your shoes could be replaced with the other. I have hurt this world only to see I have hurt myself. Before destruction, see the beauty of creation. See the beauty of creation. See the beauty. The extreme beauty of creations, definitely. I'm telling you guys, this world is beautiful before it's ugly. All right, somebody had said, what number? 13. Number 13. Let's see what 13 is. Asking the cosmic lords. I'm pretty sure, you know. Those esoterically interested, I think they should listen to this poem. Asking the cosmic lords. I once got angry and asked the cosmic lords why my face had accepted such eyes. As the seven heavens opened, in one glance I realized I was the eighth. A sideways infinity sign cannot be misplaced. Beyond numeracy, God has created the measureless. Chosen my strength, gravity was its own door. When the meteor fell, the sky wondered if mankind was ready to see its rock collection. Wow, when the meteor fell, the sky wondered if mankind was ready to see its rock collection. I am a poet of the deathless, only to see my words are only my worlds. As I waited for a response, I noticed the cosmos was already home. I noticed the cosmos was already home. That's the last line. right, guys, one last number. Somebody choose so I could, move on from this poetry tunnel. What are the names here? Samantha, Shruthilal. You guys can choose a number. Alright, whatever, guys. I'm going to choose a number. Let's see. Let's go with number 6. Last one. So, guys, the last poem. Trust the moment. This, guys, is pretty much my life lesson. Pretty much me, as I feel as a being. If there was a sort of pattern to my karma, it was just lessons of trust. For me, before there was a game of knowing or wondering about what's in the unknown, there was actually an engagement with my own intelligence. I think so many people, they want to contact and try to understand an intelligence outside in other dimensions, but if you don't understand your intelligence, what are you going to compare to what? You know what I mean? So that means it's like you are there is a God you need to meet, but this God is you before you. It is the symphony. Literally, I will tell you, this is, to me, I'm gonna define it as a divine experience. It's a giant symphony. That means in this life you can live in ways through the non-dual intuitive reception of the trust of the moment that after playing your part, levels of life open up to you. It is not just about a physical walk. It is about how the mind is crafting its own self. That means you are like an unknown mind endlessly as you live, practicing living. You're automatically doing this, and you have technically mastered. So if you live a life where you're experiencing many dimensions, you have attained some sort of mastery with living. Everybody, like a Shaolin monk, would wake up early in the morning, go in the forest, practice it, martial art techniques, to practice his own skill, as if he was, like some people, like when I give these talks, like so many people have said different things, but I really only compare myself to myself because I don't know anyone else. What I mean by that, not that I don't know anyone, I mean in the sense that I don't have other people's eyes. So when someone insults me, I have no idea how they're insulting me, so I can't take the insult. I can't take the insult. So do you know what I mean? That means the language is there, but I don't know what kind of me the other person's eyes see. And that's pretty much the excitement in the artist's life, that once you share your artwork, they say this, I don't know who said this, probably some person like Picasso's, around Picasso, let's say Picasso's cousin said. They would say, once your artwork enters the public, it is no longer yours because it's technically the evolution of your artwork. So these talks for me, they were like the beginning of it was my artwork, but the way now it's extending in people's eyes and people are hearing it and they're going to look at the world in different ways, it becomes, I'm telling you, it's like the world finishes the painting we start, because we won't be here till the end. So that's the thing. It's not that the system is a workstation. It's like, believe it or not, it's like an office, this dimension. And if you understand how everything is working, it's by the symphony of a sort of decency. It's as if we think conceptual knowledge is the peak. I'm telling you, there could be in the future, we could say an emotion is like a picture. You know how they say a picture captures 1,000 words? We can say an emotion captures 1,000 thoughts. So when a person gets an emotion, it's like they suddenly get access to this database of selfhood. For me, it's very like that. But the way I treat it is that I learned early on through my own intuitive noticings, if I can say, that there was no need. The logos pretty much through a trust in my own inner voice, I realized that the Logos was saying, don't see a face to the unknown. That is the fool's mistake. Because the moment you see a face to the unknown, you see another storyline behind the world, you will stop caring about the storyline you're in. And that's the type of non-duality where there should be an escape. It shouldn't be escapism. That means if you're spiritual because life is tough and you don't want to be simple, then that is not spirituality. That is escapism. Because then you're gonna act spiritual, but you're gonna always be, your attention is on earth first. So it's literally like, think of it this way. We are individuals that work. Now we want a collective civilization that works. So, so what does that mean? We have to become multidimensional workers of our own selfhood. That means they're no longer people stressed and depressed. That's just an angle you're looking at yourself that's uncomfortable, and you can turn your head the other way. Now, this doesn't mean that somebody does something wrong, that's not going to echo and cause them suffering. It will. I mean, it's literally, you step on thin ice, it breaks, your foot goes into the cold water, you suffer. Nothing might happen, but your foot, your shoe and sock suffers. The skin cells of your foot suffer. So it's about how we step. I remember I was talking to someone and about this whole discussion of, I even saw Jordan Peterson be approached by this, I don't remember what the thing was. Some magazine had approached Jordan Peterson, this incredible speaker, and they had asked Jordan Peterson about pretty much women. On some level, it was this issue of men and women in, for example, corporate culture, where men would, in some sense, women would, in some sense, be very appealing to men, and then when men would give in to their desires, they were, in some sense, seen as, of course, animals or savages. So it was that kind of notion. And Jordan Peterson was bringing up this point that it's like we're trying to look beautiful, at the same time we want to be disconnected. So it is this strange time where now it's a phase of beautiful disconnection. Oh man, we're really living like savages. But the whole issue was, the thing I wanted to say about this was that Jordan Peterson was bringing up the point that there was the appeal, and at the same time, in this civilization, we have many types of DNA, many types of human beings entering the system, going into the system, being a new part of the system, regardless of how much their impression is archaic. That means when I live a new day, I mean, I'm technically writing history. I don't know about you guys. When I do something new, it's history for me. So the thing was, like, you can't go another way. I just wanted to give a metaphor for the same thing kind of I saw Jordan Peterson was saying to the interviewer there, whereas is another way of saying you can't go hug a grizzly bear and be like, oh no, the grizzly bear shouldn't have bit me. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't go to a dangerous neighborhood and wonder why the neighborhood wasn't safe, and you know what I mean? That means you can wonder, but from a safe position. That means, here's the thing, you got to get yourself out of domains and arenas of chaos and quickly go to arenas of order. The games of order are more rewarding. That means from the advancement of the human mind, if we can literally look at anything, let's say right now you're a painter, a welder, I don't know, like whatever kind of craft you have. If you go and see what the newest findings are on that craft, and then you go see everything people have done, and you wonder what they haven't done, you will always find the new. And I think it has been an incredible thing that YouTube is going to go down in history as the greatest thing ever. I am telling you. The greatest epigenetical evolution, wave of evolution, is YouTube. I'm telling you. Because human beings, in the process of sharing digital content, began to value the content. And in valuing the content, noticed where is the new in this old school system. Do you know? That means even in a political stance, for me, the liberal view is looking at the front view of the car. The conservative view is looking at your back mirror. Do you know what I mean? Back view mirror. So it becomes, that's the whole thing. One is doesn't want to change that quick. The other one wants to really quick so that it forgets. And it's literally a balance. And I was thinking, why don't we have a system of two presidents, two prime ministers? Do you know? Two simultaneous prime ministers that talk to one another. Do you know what I mean? That means I think it would be incredible if we have this structure and all nations abide by this, where instead of one president, there's two presidents, and it is in some sense, you can say, relationship based. That means, how would I say it? It's as if like, here's the issue. I mean, this may sound a bit extreme and maybe impossible because the different political parties have different values, but I was thinking, like, we have tried, we haven't, like in my writings, I talk about a Yin-Yang Civilization. So imagine there were two two presidents, two prime ministers, and when one prime minister had too much pressure on him and was literally freaking out and making terrible decisions, the other prime minister would be like, all right, man, just chill out for a second, let me take over for a bit. You know, and it would be literally two people driving. And I know there is the first lady and whatnot, but I'm not talking about this. I'm saying about two, in some sense, like you can say, I mean, here's the issue. Because of greed, people may want to go isolated, but if all political systems, all human beings who have some sort of political authority begin to accept that it is okay that we bring a dual kind of leadership into motion, that means it's like for the first time, both the most chaotic leader and the most ordered leader were voted at the same time. And people were like, what is a government, what is a nation run by chaos and order going to look like? And strangely, the chaos and order would battle between each other. That means the two presidents or prime ministers would keep each other on their A game. Do you see what I mean? But it's like when the person wins the race, they can just relax and do whatever. And that's the issue. We have to have smart political systems if we want smart people. You know? And a smart system gives itself allowance to change. And any system, whether it's political, corporate, whatever, in whatever context, even ideological, any system that doesn't want to change has stopped growing. That means if imagine like let's say somebody starts this movement and he's like, I believe, you know, the whole universe is iced tea, cup of iced tea. You know, I believe in iced teaism. You know, I believe my soul is like a glass, and I believe my body is like a glass, and my soul is being poured like iced tea. You know, and I believe the universe, the edge of the universe is like an iced tea glass, and energy inside the universe is the iced tea and iced teaism. Do you know? And that's all we believe, right? And imagine there was a whole building dedicated to iced teaism. People raised the glasses of iced tea. The ceremony of putting the ice cubes was like, for example, very divine. You know, we'd have like these kind of, you know, very like a holy grail with ice cubes, blessing the ice cubes, putting them in ice. Like, do you see what I mean? So what I'm saying is, imagine all those people in that building for decades. They're like, yeah, man, iced teaism. And then they're like, hey, man, what if life is not iced tea? What if it's more than iced tea? And imagine people in that iced teaism were like, what did you say, man? How could it? You know, why couldn't it also be iced tea? You know, why couldn't it all be an iced tea glass? Do you know? So you see, it's so phenomenal. It's so multidimensional. And we're so obsessed with individual parts of it that it's like after a while, you're just crying. Then you're just laughing at how foolish the system is. You know? That means there was a time I thought, like, I entertained the notion that if there was a creator, why a temporary being? Like, why not just create from the beginning an eternal being? Why not create a flawless creation? Do you know? And then I realized, because if there was no flaw, we would not know the flawless. If you weren't weak, if you don't experience moments of weakness, how do you know what your strength is? You know? And so finally, I have built enough of a context to share this last poem and end off here. Trust the moment, from the Garden of Change. Trust the moment and give flowers to the heart that is beyond temporal temptation. All power is a nameless movement that stillness cannot contemplate. As the world turns, so does manifestation transcend the eyes of man. How does hate break itself in a broken mirror? You think you know, but what if the cup is empty before full? Every word is a world of its own. Break the ego with the life of the new. Change the game, for why break the path of light? The greatest sin is to forget who you are. Wow, so two people said 9 at the same time. Okay, guys, that's crazy. All right, I'll read 9. Beyond the moon's voice. Guys, because it's number 9, I'm thinking if I should do it with a German accent, but probably 9. Yeah. But anyways, beyond the moon's voice. Why? Okay, let me prepare for this. All right, guys. The iced tea glass is empty. Time to read this. Why learn a secret touch when you are one? The question needs an answer to exist. Is day doubting itself at night? When we think, thought justifies the external and internal worlds. When we think thought justifies the external world, the external and internal worlds. Oh my God, guys, I'm going to read this again. Why learn a secret touch when you are one? The question needs an answer to exist. Is day doubting itself at night? When we think thought justifies the external and internal worlds, have you seen the two sides of the coin at once? All right, guys, I'm going to turn off the music. When we think thought justifies the external and internal worlds, is day doubting itself at night? When we think thought justifies the external and internal worlds. All right, this was the break in the middle. Have you seen the two sides of the coin at once? Every path is a recalibration of who you truly are. Love all that is, and feel the sun beyond the moon's voice. Before I was hidden, the unhidden was my choice. Before I was hidden, the unhidden was my choice. Guys, let me see if I could copy paste this and share this whole poem. Oh, okay, I could do something smart here. Hold on. Beyond the moon's voice, guys, could suggest that it's the sun. For me in my poetry, usually when I speak about the moon is conscious of that it's the sun's light, you know? There we go. Okay. So guys, if you look at the wallpaper of the talk, I'm going to post the poem number 9 there. People can see it there. Okay, there we go. So guys, I'm going to leave that poem there so people can see it. You know, guys, I'm going to try to see if I can actually look into this poem. It says, why learn a secret touch when you are one? Non-duality has no purpose, pretty much. The question needs an answer to exist. Duality is codependent. Is day doubting itself at night? Again, about duality being codependent. When we think thought justifies the external and internal world. Is day doubting itself at night when we think thought justifies the external and internal world? So again, it's like thought, the nature of the external, internal, dualistic, and then it says, have you seen the two sides of the coin at once? Now the poem is asking the reader, have you noticed chaos and order at the same time? Have you noticed your luck or lack of luck, or your good or bad? Have you noticed that reality is like the two sides of the coin, pretty much? And then it says, every path is a recalibration of who you truly are, which technically is a point about trust, because that's how you change. If you don't trust where you're going to, you're never going to experience where you're going to, And so we have Then it says, love all that is and feel the sun beyond the moon's voice. There we go. Love all that is and feel the sun beyond the moon's voice. A suggestion as if you have come to a position where you are not just an idea to yourself, then it's like, imagine right now I'm speaking to you, I'm like the moon, and what is my mind is the sun's light. Do you know? So imagine me, if I had read this poem, to me it would mean, all right, let me see what is my light from. You know, so it would mean that perhaps in this phase of your life, you have to really look at the nature, your nature, the nature of your attention, you know? And it requires a strange strength to be able to trust your inner realms without constantly having the outer realms justify them. And then it says, before I was hidden, the unhidden was my choice. Yeah. Universe is free. It's just that because we're a part of it, we have free will. You know? So, yeah. So a quick answer to the question, is static existence containing dynamic experience? That's pretty much a character in a story, you know? So I would say static existence would nullify the dynamic experience. Somebody could be like, yo, I just got a next level idea, you know, and somebody would be like, hey man, you know, everybody has ideas, you know, static existence. It's like literally the inspiration and passion of the moment was cut down. Literally like a tree that was like fast forwarding into its growth was cut down, you know. So I would say, in this life, attempt the new. This life is like really novelty is the point of it. I don't know, like the purpose, because it has a new dimension to it. I don't know. It's like the novelty replaces all your opinions of the past. So who I thought when I was yesterday is technically irrelevant now. You know, it's relevant in certain ways I speak, for example, or where the language comes from or how, but on some level I realize it's a creative universe. As a creative universe, you shouldn't fear engaging it. So you can't create anything if you don't trust your inner realms. You can't even write a sentence if you don't trust your inner realms. You know? If you don't even trust the pen in your hand, how could you write? You know, if you don't trust the body and the mind, how can you live as a soul, you know, poetically? So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Um, for those in the Patreon community, I'm going to go and be in the Discord server. Thanks, everybody. Much blessings. And um, Robert Frost, I want to see if there's something else he says. He says, I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. Somewhere, like as if he's seen the destiny of that moment already. And he says, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And you know what's fascinating? If he had taken the one more traveled by, he would have gone his whole life being like, holy shit, what was that other road like though? You know? So that's the thing. In reality, this doesn't mean suddenly like giving into your animalistic instincts, but it just means that now you have to pilot this biological data processing event as attention of the whole moment. And when you can watch your moment, literally I was reading something about karma yesterday. It was, you have no karma when you're non-dual witnessing, you know? Because who's there? That means imagine person A and person B are at the park. Person B suddenly comes out of nowhere and says something like incredibly like rude or, you know, insulting. And then person A is just silently watching this. And person B is like, what's wrong with this guy? I just insulted him. Why is he why isn't he responding? And you see person A is just watching the moment as an energetic phenomena. There is no self to engage the language or be touched by the language. That means depends on who you are, if you, how much you let yourself like when you realize the value of your own mind, your experience becomes your teacher. When you still haven't realized the value of your own life's journey, then it becomes like still your maybe I mean there's always it is the case that a greatness walks with greatness first before it is great. You know, there is that whole notion in history, you know, where there is archetypes, the archetype gets introduced. The eyes of the child see something specific. You know, like for example, the guy that came up with the sound, the voice for the Predator, for the movie Predator, Alien and Predator, you know, for that movie, the guy, they pretty much showed him, the voice actor, they showed him a picture. I forget who the voice actor is, but this incredible guy. Like, to me, this guy's a genius. But anyways, this voice actor, what happened was they took him to, pretty much they showed him a picture of the face of the predator creature, and it was like kind of disgusting to him, to the voice actor. And the voice actor just closed his eyes, and in his childhood, he remembered in his childhood that there was this, what do you call it? There was this crab that was in the sunlight, this dead crab's carcass kind of like bubbling and making noise, right, in the sunlight when he was a kid. He had access to that memory. He closed his eyes and he could hear the crackling sound of that memory of his childhood. Do you know? And so he suddenly animated that crackling sound from the dead crab body on the beach into the voice of the predator, the character, you know, into this incredible animated voice, you know. It was as if he got in, he zoomed back into his inner realms, which was a recreation, reanimation of his past in an auditory way. And from that auditory position, a character was born. From the sound and light and motions of this world, we are born into an individual. Because after some point in Vedic thought, they would say you would see the Leela of life. You will see how it's a game of forces. Though some of these forces are known to us, the natural sciences, and then some of these forces are unknown to us, the mystical sciences. The question of the question. You know, that's the beautiful thing about philosophy. Philosophers were minds that dared to live as minds in a world that was trying to put everything into just an embodiment that changed so slow, you know. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening.